Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
I'm Mark Kimpland, the pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. Today we have a very exciting cutting-edge program for you. As many of you know, throughout the history of the church, the last 30, 40 years in most mainline denominations have spent a time of regression, a time of lowering worship and attendance in our churches. And many denominations are now looking at new church starts to come into communities where we can plant new churches. And I'm proud to say that as a United Methodist, over the last 5 years in this Upper New York conference, we have started dozens and dozens of new churches. And so today's program is going to talk about a very specific new church start that is going to be happening July 1st of this year. And I'd like to welcome to the program Reverend John Martin, who is the pastor of the Adirondack Community Church, who is going to spearhead this new church start in Vestal. John, welcome to the program and glad you're here.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Let's begin with this, John. Can you share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, your background, your family, just a little bit about who John Martin is, who's going to be coming to this community, and we'll talk more about that new church start in a moment. But can you kind of share yourself and your being with our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely. I grew up in Owego, New York, which is not very far from here. Born and raised in Owego. My parents, Dan and Donna Martin. My father owned a sporting goods store in Owego, and he was known as the sporting goods store guy. Okay. My mom worked at the local factory there called Hadco, and then later transitioned to San Mina. I grew up in Owego, and then shortly after, I actually got married. I married a young woman, Crystal is her name, from Candor, New York. Mm-hmm. The two of us almost immediately moved to Maryland after we got married, and then we started our family. We were on this 5-year plan. The plan was to wait 5 years to have children. We were going to finish our school, and then we were going to move back home, and then we were going to start having kids. And 6 months into marriage, we found out that we were pregnant. It was Valentine's Day, okay. And we found out we were pregnant with our first child, Emily. And then 6 months after Emily was born, we found out that we were pregnant again with our second child, Hannah. Emily and Hannah are 10 and 9 years old now. We figured out how it worked, and about 2 years after Hannah was born, we were pregnant with our third child, our son Gideon, and Gideon is 6. And so I'm a family guy. I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for about 14 years, and very excited to be moving back to home and to the area.
Awesome. So this will be a homecoming of sorts then for you then?
In some ways, yes.
Wonderful. Good, good. What can you tell our viewers and listeners about your background, your seminary education, where you went to school, perhaps even growing up back in the high school years and such things? What's brought you to this moment in time and such things with you professionally and educationally?
Sure. I graduated from Owego Free Academy in 2000, and so after graduating, I attended Houghton College. Houghton is a Christian liberal arts college out in Western New York. It's south of Buffalo and Rochester. And during my 4 years at Houghton, I studied what they called a religion major, a religious education, as a preparatory degree for being a pastor. And actually, while I was at Houghton, I started serving churches. My father went from being the sporting goods store guy to being a pastor in the United Methodist Church. And his organist in his church also played piano for a tiny little congregational church. And so they were looking for a pastor, and she said, our minister's son is going to school to be a pastor. Maybe he will do it. And so they asked me, and I started serving that little church my junior year of college. And so I would drive 3 hours from Houghton back to little West Newark. West Newark is just outside of Owego, and serve that little church. The next year, the United Methodist Church deemed it a good idea to add 2 more Methodist churches to my rotation. And so all of a sudden I had a 3-point charge as a senior in college. I graduated a semester early from Houghton. In between Houghton and seminary, I got married to Crystal, and then we moved down to Maryland, where I attended Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C. I think, as I said, I've been a pastor for 14 years. In the past 5 of those, I've been the pastor at Lake Placid, Adirondack Community Church in Lake Placid, New York.
Now, when you went to Wesley Theological Seminary, did you go there full time? Did you serve any churches there at that time, or what was?
Yeah, I did. It seemed like ministry was always a part of what I did, even while in school. And so, yeah, we went to Wesley. I was a full-time student, but I was what they called a student local pastor. Mm-hmm. And so I was serving a tiny little church, Mount Bethel United Methodist Church, which was about 60 miles outside of D.C. And I actually commuted every day with that brand new wife and brand new family. And some days the commute was an hour, 60 minutes an hour. Some days it was 4, just depended on the traffic. But yeah, I was always serving churches while I was in school.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. We have similar stories. So really the question that I want to pose with our viewers and listeners today is, in very specific terms, what brings you back to the area? Can you kind of just encase that a little bit for them as to something's going to happen here July 1st in your life and in the life of your family, and so specifically, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our purpose for coming back to the area is to plant a church or to start a church. A lot of people, when I announced this in Lake Placid, or when I talk with friends back here in the area about it, a lot of people are a little confused about what that means or what that looks like. They think, am I bringing a shovel and seeds and going to dig and plant? Really what we're talking about is starting a church from scratch. We don't have a building, we don't necessarily have a congregation, and so July 1, we're going to be in the area. We're officially going to be set free by the United Methodist Church to do this work. And it's all about gathering a community of people who have a similar vision to come together and to create this new church.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the elephant in the room would be, and I've heard this since our last meeting that we've had together,
sure,
and such things, why Vestal?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was at a meeting just last night, and I shared this with some of the folks that were at the meeting, and one of the people who are rather new to the church asked, aren't there already existing churches in the Vestal area? And I said yes and yes. So I guess my question to you then, John, is why Vestal? Why this new church start here?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of want to say because Vestal's an amazing place to live, because that's an awesome community and there's a lot of great people there. But why plant a church? Why not move into an existing church or kind of use what we're doing? And what we've found, and this is not we, the United Methodist Church, but Christianity as a whole, what we've found is that new churches attract new people. And if our mission, if our purpose is really to reach out to other people and invite more people to be a part of what we are, more people into this kingdom of God or into this discipleship lifestyle, this journey of following Christ, we need to offer people new venues and new ways to do that. And so the existing churches that are in Vestal and in the surrounding area, Methodist and other denominations, are doing great work already. They've already reached congregations. People have found their niche in those places. A new church is going to invite new people into it. And I use the example of Burger King. Some people love fast food. Some people hate fast food. The reality is that Burger King builds a new Burger King in Vestal. Whether you like Burger King or not, you're going to go in to check it out. And that's what we found happens with new churches, is we're inviting new people to check it out and maybe become a part of that. Mm-hmm. So,
now, as a preparatory stage in coming to the area and such things, what kind of work went into that, either that you did or the conference might have done along the lines of demographics, or what kind of studies, what kind of input made the decision Vestal versus somewhere else? Can you speak to that just
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of the demographic work. What does the population in that area look like? Where do they project the population to go? Is it going to grow? Is it going to decline? There was also some work done in discerning the right person to do that. And so the conference leadership, as well as my wife and myself, we spent some time deciding, are we the right people for this job? And really, Crystal and I, our ministry has been one where we've often been in churches that have grown, but also churches that have grown specifically within that young family demographic. That's who we are, but that's also seemingly who we connect well with. And a lot of times we're bringing in those people who are new to Christianity, those people who aren't existing church people, but rather are brand new and are checking it out. And so the conference looked at the demographics of Vestal, and they said, geez, it seems like we have a disproportionate number of younger families. We have people with children. There's 5 elementary schools in Vestal, and we do see a population that's grown a bit and even projected to grow some. And this might be a really, really good fit. And of course, part of it, I think, for the conference is this is not unfamiliar territory for us. This is not a new place. Owego is the school district next to Vestal. Mm-hmm. So while it's hard in some ways for me to think about my kids going to the rival school. This is in a lot of ways a really good fit for us.
Yeah. Let me ask this question. All right, so July 1st, your family's coming down. You're going to look to plant a church, and we'll talk more about what's going to be involved in all of that, and all the hard work, and pounding the pavement and knocking on doors and shaking hands and all of that kind of stuff. And as you discerned your call to do that, what experience do you bring to the table? What experience will you tap into to launch this exciting project in July?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's that technical. This is where I went to college. This is where I went to seminary. These are the degrees I hold and the certificates. And there has been a good deal of that. Crystal and I have both been privileged to be a part of different things, like the Young Pastors Network, where we've connected with some very successful church planners like Adam Hamilton at Church of the Resurrection, and some other individuals that we've gotten to know and connect with. We're actually going out to Ohio to Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church next week for a church planning conference, where we'll be with people like George Acevedo and Jacob Armstrong, Rosario Picardo, some other church planners in the United Methodist world. And so there's that experience, but really Crystal and I have found the reality in our ministry. Like I said, we've been married for 12 years. I've been in ministry for 14. And every church we've gone into has started relatively small and has realized growth. And in a lot of ways, what we've done is we've really built a church within a church. We've attracted a certain demographic, or we've attracted people that share our vision, that share that vision of what the kingdom of God is supposed to look like and what it can look like. And so we kind of feel like we've lived out some of these things, and some of the vision that we have for this new church in Vestal, we've done some of these things before and realize some fruit from it. So we feel like while we're certainly not experts, we're certainly not grizzled veterans in this, we have some of the tools and some of the preparation to take us where we need to go.
Right. I'm intrigued. What happens on July 1st?
Yeah.
Let's move down that road if we can. I'm intrigued that here you are in Lake Placid, the moving company comes, you jump in your car or however you do it, and you get here, you unpack, and then on July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, you wake up in the morning and do what?
Yeah, right.
So can you get to some of that specifics as to what you see the next steps being from today, and then starting July 1st?
Yeah, so a lot of that work has actually begun, believe it or not, already. It's things like, the meetings you and I have had prior to this conversation we're having right now. Last night I was in Oxford, New York, a church that I served years ago, and I was meeting with the leadership from that church and talking to them about exactly this. What happens when you go to Vestal? What are you doing? What's happening before you go?
Yes.
And so we've already begun some of that work. The cool thing about the United Methodist Church, and you know this, is we're what we call connectional. And that means that in some ways, we're like churches have campuses. Some churches in the area, they have like an Owego campus and a Vestal campus and an Endicott campus. Well, the UMC has that, except for it's all across New York State. And so we already have that structure built into us. So for me, a big part of that is just being a part of that and inviting other churches to join us in that work already. So some of that's begun. The other part of that, logistically for my family, is we don't, the United Methodist Church has parsonages when we move pastors. For us, there's no church, so there's no parsonage. So we've also worked on the house buying experience. And so Crystal and I have made an offer. The offer's been accepted. We have a contract on a home in Vestal. So we're doing some of that stuff. But once we finally close on a house, and the moving truck loads us up and we move, we'll probably end up getting here late June. I think my kids end school June 23rd, so sometime after that. What happens then? The very first thing we're going to be doing is continuing these conversations that we've already had with churches and with pastors, with individuals. We've already started to begin to build a team of people who share this vision, that say, yes, we could be a part of a new church, and we do think that a new church could better reach new people, and especially these kinds of people in this way. So we would continue to work on that. The other thing that we